Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis. It's in the county, state of the state of Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday morning, June the 9th, 2024. And the time is 11:30 a.m. First, thanking my family, my support for your continued career support. Continue to keep myself employed in Memphis, tri-state area. Continue to further my education, tomorrow, college online. Continue to pursue my soul to be self. Study, be administrative, contract, mark. Spend time, take a break, go to school, and family future. I'm going to go back tomorrow, college online. Continue to pursue my soul to be study, be administrative, contract, mark. Now, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to start my Facebook Live. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, in the county, state of the state of Tennessee. Date is Sunday morning, June the 9th, 2024. The time, 11:31 a.m. First, say thank you to my family, my support for continued courage support. Continue to keep myself employed in Memphis, tri-state area. Continue to further my education, tomorrow, college online. Continue to pursue my soul to be studying, being administrative, contract, mark. Spend time, take a break, and go to school. In the very near future, I'm going to go back to Monroe College online and continue to pursue my social research and administrative contract mark. Now, let me click over to this BibleStudyTools.com. They got all available versions of the Holy Bible. Now they got the best known translations, and then they got the other translations, then older translations. Now, you know them older translations like the Tyndale, the Latin Vulgate, and the American Standard Version, so on, you know, Dewey Reams Catholic Bible. And now you go up here to the modern other translations like the Orthodox Jewish Bible, the Hebrew Names Version, and things, you know, Bibles like that, the Common English Bible, the Complete Jewish Bible, and the New International Reader's Version, and so on and so forth. And then you go up to the best known translations, you know, King James Version, the New American Standard Bible, New International Version, the New King James Version of the Bible, and New Revised Standard Version, so on and so forth. So they have those available versions of the Holy Bible, and also in languages as well. Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, Italian, Dutch, Chinese, and so on and so forth. So the Holy Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, has been translated. Then you got all these available versions. So let me click over to Bible Gateway. Bible Gateway, read the Bible, available versions. Now, Bible Gateway has they more languages from A to Z, from A to Z. And English Bibles, I mean, it's a lot of all them Bibles that I talked about over in BibleStudyTools.com. They over here on BibleGateway.com in English. And then you got all these languages, Spanish, and like I say, from A to Z, and practically every language on the face of this earth, on this planet. BibleGateway.com. There's a Bible. So, you know, you read the Holy Bible, no matter, regardless of what language. You can find the Holy Bible pretty much in practically every language that's spoken on this earth, on this planet. Now let me go to the names of God from the Old Testament, the names of God. Now let me say something about this tetragram first. Now click over here. This tetragrammaton. Let me go to Merriam-Webster. Let me click Merriam-Webster right fast. Now we're talking about this tetragrammaton. The 4 Hebrew letters, usually transliterated YHWH, HWH or JHVH that form a biblical proper name of God. And let me scroll first. No. And so, the word history and so on and so forth, and etymology like Middle English from late Latin, from Greek, from neuter or tetragrammatus, having 4 letters, from tetra plus grammar letter, and then gram. First known used 15th century in the meaning defined above. So they first started using that tetragrammaton in the 15th century. All right, let me click back over here. Now let me click dictionary.com because we online. So let me click dictionary.com about tetragrammaton. Now, it's a noun, the Hebrew word for God, consisting of the 4 letters Y-O-D, Yod, and then H-E, he, and then Y, W-A-W, and he, H-E. Transliterated constantly, usually as Y-H-W-H, capital. Now, pronounced as Adonai or Elohim in substitution for the original pronunciation, forbidden since the 2nd or 3rd century BC. Now, let's go to the word history and origin of tetragrammaton, 1350 through 1400 Middle English, Greek. Tetragrammaton, noun, use of neuter or tetragrammaton, tetragrammatus, having 4 letters, equivalent to tetra, plus grammate, stem of grammar. All right. So like I said, we're on dictionary.com. So let me click back over. All right. The Old Testament. Names of God. Elohim. Shalom. The tetragrammaton. Nisi. And then the tetragrammaton. Capital Y. HWH, because you know it's sacred to the Jewish people, Jewish religion, faith, belief is considered sacred, so they don't say it. And also their tetragrammaton, Rapha, the Lord who sacrifices, El Shaddai, Jehovah Jireh, El Olam, El, Adonai, Jehovah, and the tetragrammaton, Shammai, and the tetragrammaton, Rohi, El Elyon. Now those are Old Testament names of God. Now let me click over to the New Testament names of God. Adonai, El Shaddai, Jehovah Jireh, the Lord our banner. Emmanuel, El Elyon, God with us. Elohim, and the Tetragrammaton, capital Y, HWH, is sacred to the Jewish community, people, the Jewish belief, faith. Jehovah, Sabo, Alpha and Omega. Jehovah, the Lord who sacrifices. Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah Shammah, Jehovah Siddiqenu, Jehovah Nissi, Abba, Christ. Those are names of God in the New Testament. Now, we didn't see Emmanuel and so on and so forth, but those are names of God in the New Testament. Now, anti-gang, anti-Gnostic, anti-hazing, also. And versus heresies, translated meaning against heresies. Saint Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyons, together with Saint Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch, wrote a 5-volume book refuting Gnosticism, proving that Gnosticism was a heresy. Also, Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, in the year 367 AD, his 39th festival letter, Easter letter, banned all non-Christian writing. Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, together with all the other bishops in the Catholic Church, they went around and collected all that Gnostic theologian writing and destroyed it. A personal person took some copies of that Gnostic theologian writing, wrapped it in some papyrus paper, and buried it in Nagamata, Egypt. 1945, little farm boys outside playing and found that Gnostic theologian writing, gave it to his father, who was a farmer, and eventually the scholars at the colleges and universities all around the world, the people in academia, the sorority and the fraternity, the Soho's frat bitches, they found out about it. Ever since then, they have been misusing and using all this Gnostic theologian writing. For example, the Bruce Codex, the Askew Codex, the Berlin Codex, the Nagamata Library. They've been being self-destructive, been destructive. Been trying to destroy nature, wildlife, and the environment. Trying to destroy the North and South Pole. Now they're going out in space trying to do the same thing. Also, St. Epiphanius of Salome, the Bishop of Cyprus, wrote a 3-volume book titled Panareum Greek, Panareum Latin, translated meaning bread basket. The scholars at the college and university all around the world have said that St. Epiphanius of Salome, Bishop of Cyprus, 3-volume book is also a versus heresies against heresies. The Almighty, Conservative, Vice Lord, Four Corner Hustle. The Almighty, Black Princeton. The Almighty, Mickey Coldstone, Kraken. The Almighty, Black Disciple, Poppin. The Almighty, Bluefin, Black Disciple, the Black Disciple. Lord, Stone, Disciple. Gangster, Disciple, Killer, GDK. Glaze, Donut, Killer, GDK. 7-11, G Killer. Goofy. Now, while I've been doing research, doing investigation on these books, very important to locate these books. And one of the places that you can look for these Jewish books, books on Christianity, and Gnosticism, is that you can go to the Jewish Quarterly Review. It was established by Israel Abrahams and Claude Montefiore. Now, excuse my pronunciation of this man's name, of these gentlemen's name. And in 1889, the Jewish Quarterly Review is the oldest English language journal in the field of Jewish studies. And also, the Jewish Quarterly is an international, London-based journal of ideas founded in 1953. It presents a vibrant Jewish perspective on contemporary culture. Also, the Jewish Studies Quarterly, founded by Peter Schaeffer and Joseph Dan in 1993, and edited out of Princeton University. Jewish Studies Quarterly offers studies of Jewish history, religion, and culture. And also, the Central Conference of American Rabbis Journal, the Reformed Jewish Quarterly, seeks to explore ideas and issues of Judaism and Jewish life, primarily, but not exclusively, from a Reformed Jewish perspective, in both prose and poetry. Now, if you're looking for information about Judaism, Jewish religion, the faith, the belief, just like I just showed you, those places, and also about Gnosticism and Christianity, you can go there to those places I just mentioned. And again, the Jewish Quarterly Review, the Jewish Quarterly, Jewish Studies Quarterly, and the Central Conference of American Rabbis Journal, the Reformed Jewish Quarterly. That's all together. You know, like I say, the Central Conference of American Rabbis Journal, that is the Reformed Jewish Quarterly. It's all one together. So you can go there to those places that I just mentioned, and you can find information on Judaism, including Gnosticism, because I've gone there, and Christianity. Now, let me Now, I just recently found this very important book. Let me click over it right quick. All right, let me see. Okay, let me see. All right, wait a minute. Okay. Now I wanted to make sure I get because I was seeing something else about the same book. But what happened was they put this. What happened was the book was mentioned in another book that was in 2019. But the original book that I'm talking about was in 1940. And the title of the book is The Jewish Background to Gnosticism. And like I say again, to Gnosticism, a guide for the perplexed. And again, let me mention the title. The Jewish Background to Gnosticism. A guide for the perplexed. And the author of the book is G.W. Trump. Now I'm going to have to spell his name, capital T, R-O-M-P-F. And like I said, G.W. and last name is Trump. Capital T, R-O-M-P-F. And he's the author of the book. And again, the title, The Jewish Background to Gnosticism, a guide for the perplexed. And it was published in 1940. Now it's in another book, The Gnostic World. And that was published in 2019. So let me click back over here on something. So, like I said, this book, it was written. I mean, it was published in 1940. And it's also in another book titled The Gnostic World. This one. But like I said, that's one book I was trying to see. See when you mention the book. So like I said, that book was written in 1940. But I'm trying to check to see if they had a little tidbit of it that Mike can read from. But is when you try to look for the book was published in 1940, and that same book is in another book, The Gnostic World, and then it's another author. But they took that book and put it in the book with The Gnostic World. So when you look for it, remember that the author of the book is T.R. The main author is G.W. Trump, capital T.R.O.M.P.F. And it was published in 1940. It's also published again in another book, The Gnostic World, in 1918. So you'll find it. Let me see what this is. Now, you can also read this book that was written by a very prominent Jewish rabbi. Maimonides. Moses Maimonides. He was the author. And it was written around, it was published around 1190, and then published in English in 1881. And again, the title of that book is The Guide for the Perplexed. And it's a book by Moses Maimonides. He's a very prominent rabbi, Jewish rabbi. So okay. Now what I was looking at is Rabbi Akiva, Akiva. Rabbi, he was a rabbi, Akiva. Okay. Now it's important that I mention that because it's something that I want to make sure that you don't never say. When we talk about the church, and the church identified the people that you say Gnostics were Jews, as if there was no Jewish information available. They talked as if it wasn't any Jewish people, or like at that period of time, like everybody was in cap. No, that's not. Rabbi Akiva. Akiva ben Joseph. Now I'm gonna be on Wikipedia. I want to talk about this man. Want to mention this man. Want to make sure that this man is because during his life, this Gnostic stuff did exist. But Rabbi Akiva, 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 Akiva ben Joseph, supposedly born 50 in September, around 50 Common Era in Judea, which was at that time the Roman Empire. Apparently he died in September 28th, 135 in Caesarea, Judea. That's the Roman Empire. And he was also known as Rabbi Akiva, was a leading Jewish scholar and sage, a Tanna, Tanna, of the latter part of the first century and the beginning of the second century. So I want to make sure you hear those times. During that period of time, see, that's when Gnosticism, during that first century and second century, this man was there. He was there. Rabbi Akiva. He was a Tanna. Let me click over here. A Tannaim. They were the rabbinic sages whose views are recorded in the Mishnah from approximately 10 or 220 Common Era, the period of the Tanaim, also referred to as the Mishnaic period, lasts around 210 years. It came after the period of the Zugat Pairs. And was immediately followed by the period of the Amoraim interpreters. The root Tana, T-A-N-N-A, is the Aramaic equivalent of the Hebrew root Shana, which also is the root word of Mishnah. The verb Shana means to repeat what one was taught and is used to mean to learn. The Mishnaic period is commonly divided into 5 periods according to generations. There are approximately 120 known Tanaim. The Tanaim lived in several areas of the land of Israel, the spiritual center of Judaism. At that time was Jerusalem, but after the destruction of the city and the second temple, Yohanan ben Zakkai and his students founded a new council of Jamnia. Other places of learning were founded by his students in Lod, L-O-D, and in Bani Brak. Some Tanaim worked as laborers, charcoal burners, cobblers, in addition to their position as teachers and legislators. They were also leaders of the people and negotiators with the Roman Empire. Okay, so let me click back over. So we still talking about Rabbi Akiva. Now, that's what he was considered to be a Tanai of the latter part of the first century and the beginning of the second century. Rabbi Akiva was a leading contributor to the Mishnah and to the Midrash Halakha. He is referred to in Safat as Rosh La Hakamim, chief of the sages. He was executed by the Romans in the aftermath of the Bar Kokhba revolt. So like I said, this man was during that first century, second century period. Now, I'm not going to really just deal with his biographies such as his early years, marriage, so on and so forth, later years. Now, apparently, Rabbi Akiva was martyred. And there's a lot of, like legends about his death. so on and so forth. Like I said, the man, apparently he was martyred But what I was looking at is religious and scholarly perspective. Now, this man was a rabbi. Now, his Tanaitic tradition mentions that of the four who delved into the Pardes legend, Akiva was the only one who was able to properly absorb this wisdom, with the other three suffering various consequences as a result of the attempt. This serves at least to show how strong in later ages was the recollection of Akiva's philosophical speculation. The relationship between God and man. Akiva's opinion about the creation of man is recorded in Pirkei Avot. How favored is man, for he was created after an image, as scripture says, for in an image God made man. Akiva's ontology is based upon the principle that man was created, that he is not in the image of God, which would be, but after an image, after a primordial type, or philosophically speaking, after an idea. What Philo calls, in agreement with Judean theology, the first heavenly man, Adam, strict monotheist that Akiva was, he protested against any comparison of God with the angels and declared the plain interpretation of as meaning like one of us to be arrant blasphemy. It is quite instructive to read how a Christian of Akiva's generation, Justin Martyr, calls the literal interpretation thus objected to by Akiva a Jewish heretical one, in his earnest endeavors to insist as strongly as possible upon the incomparable nature of God. Akiva indeed lowers the angels somewhat to the realms of mortals, and, alluding to Psalm 78-75, maintains that manna is the actual food of the angels. This view of Akiva's, in spite of the energetic protests of his colleague Rabbi Ishmael, became the one generally accepted by his contemporaries. From his views as to the relation between God and man, he deduces that a murderer is to be considered as committing a crime against the divine archetype of man. Similarly, he recognized as the chief and greatest principle of Judaism the command, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. He does not indeed maintain thereby that the execution of this command is equivalent to the performance of the whole law, and in one of his polemic interpretation of scripture, he protests strongly against a contrary opinion allegedly held by Christians and other non-Jews since the diaspora, according to which Judaism is at best simply morality. For in spite of his philosophy, Akiva was an extremely strict and national Jew, but he is far from representing strict justice as the only attribute of God. In agreement with the ancient Israel theology, the attribute of justice and the attribute of mercy, he teaches that God combines goodness and mercy with strict justice. Hence, his maxim referred to above, God rules the world in mercy, but according to the preponderance of good or bad in human acts. Now, his eschatology as to the question concerning the frequent sufferings of the pious and the prosperity of the wicked, truly a burning one in Akiva's time. This is answered by the explanation that the pious are punished in this life for their few sins, so that in the next they may receive only reward, while the wicked obtain in this world all the recompense for the little good they have done, and in the next world will receive only punishment for their misdeeds. Consistent as Akiva always was, his ethics and his views of justice were only the strict consequence of his philosophical system. Justice as an attribute of God must also be exemplary for man. No mercy in civil justice is his basic principle in the doctrine concerning law, and he does not conceal his opinion that the action of the Jews in taking the spoil of the Egyptians is to be condemned. Biblical canon, Akiva was instrumental in drawing up the canon of the Tanakh. He protested strongly against the canoncy of certain other apocrypha. The wisdom of Sirach, for instance, in which passages is to be explained according to Kedushin 49a, and according to its Aramaic equivalent, so that Akiva's utterance reads, he who reads aloud in the synagogue from books not belonging to the canon as if they were canonical, etc. But he was not opposed to a private reading of the Apocrypha, as is evident from the fact that he himself makes frequent use of Sirach. Akiva stoutly defended, however, the canoncy of the Song of Songs and Esther. Grat's statements respecting Akiva's attitude toward the canonicity of the Song of Songs were viewed as misconceptions by I.H. Weiss. Akiva, meanwhile, was a disciple of Akiva, and under Akiva's guidance, gave the Greek-speaking Jews a rabbinical Bible. Akiva probably also provided for a revised text of the Targums for the essential base of the Targum Onkelos, which in matters of halakha reflects Akiva's opinions completely. Now, Akiva as systematizer. Akiva worked in the domain of the halakha, both in the systematization of its traditional material and in its further development. The condition of the halakha, that is, of religious practices, and indeed of Judaism in general, was a very precarious one at the turn of the first century of the Common Era. The lack of any systematized collection of the accumulated halakha rendered impossible any presentation of them in a form suitable by practical purposes. Means for the theoretical study of the halakha were also scant, both logic and exegesis. The two props of the halakha being differently conceived by the various rulings, Tanaim, and differently taught according to a tradition which has historical confirmation. It was Akiva who systematized and arranged the Mishnah, the Halakhic Codex, the Midrash, the exegesis of the Halakha, and the Halachat, the logical amplification of the Halakha. The Mishnah of Akiva, as his pupil, Rabbi Meir, had taken it from him, became the basis of the 6 orders of the Mishnah. Now, mentioned by Epiphanius, as well as the great Mishnayot of Akiva, are probably not to be understood as independent Mishnayot, existing at that time, but as the teachings and opinions of Akiva, contained in the officially recognized Mishnayot and Midrashim. At the same time, it is fair to consider the Mishnah of Judah, Hanisi, called simply the Mishnah, as well as the majority of all halakhic madrashim now extant as derived from the school of Akiva. According to Yohanan bar Napaha, our Mishnah comes directly from Rabbi Meir, the Tosefta from Rabbi Nehemiah, the Sifra from R. Judah, and the Sifri from R. Simon. But they all took Akiva for a model in their works and followed him. One recognizes here the threefold division of the halakhic material that emanated from Akiva. 1. The codified halakha, Mishnah. 2. The Tosefta, which in its original form contains a concise, logical argument for the Mishnah, somewhat like the Libush of Mordecai Jaffe on the Shokan Aruch. Number 3, the halakhic midrash. The following halakhic midrashim originated in Akiva school. The Meghilta of Rabbi Shimon on Exodus, Supra on Leviticus, Sifra Zuta on Numbers, and the Sifra to Deuteronomy. The halakhic portion of which belongs to Akiva school. What was Rabbi Akiva like? A worker who goes out with his basket. He finds wheat. He puts it in barley. He puts it in spelt. He puts it in beans. He puts it in lentils. He puts it in. When he arrives home, he sorts out the wheat by itself, barley by itself, spelt by itself, beans by themselves, lentils by themselves. So that Rabbi Akiva, he arranged the Torah rings by rings. Now, we're getting to the part where we want to talk about Akivas and talking about having knowledge of, being aware of this Gnostic stuff. In Akiva's halakha, admirable as is the systemization of the halakha by Akiva, his hermeneutics and halakhic exegesis, which formed the foundation of all Talmudic learning, surpassed it. The enormous difference between the halakha before and after Akiva may be briefly described as follows. The old halakha was, as its name indicates, the religious practice sanctioned as binding by tradition, to which were added extensions and, in some cases, limitations of the Torah, arrived at by strict logical deduction. The opposition offered by the Sadducees, which became especially strenuous in the 1st century BC, led to the development of the halakhic midrash, whose purpose was to deduce these amplifications of the law by tradition and logic out of the law itself. It might be thought that with the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, which event made an end of Sadduceeism, the halakhic midrash would also have disappeared, seeing that the halakha could now dispense with the midrash. This probably would have been the case had not Akiva created his own midrash, by means of which he was able to discover things that were even unknown to Moses. Akiva made the accumulated treasure of the oral law, which until his time was only a subject of knowledge and not a science, an inexhaustible mine from which, by the means he provided, new treasure might be continually extracted. If the older halakha is to be considered as the product of the internal struggle between Phariseeism and Sadduceeism, the halakha of Akiva must be conceived as the result of an external contest between Judaism on the one hand and Hellenism and Hellenistic Christianity on the other. Akiva no doubt perceived that the intellectual bond uniting the Jews, far from being allowed to disappear with the destruction of the Jewish state, must be made to draw them closer together than before. He pondered also the nature of that bond. The Bible could never again fill the place alone, for the Christians also regarded it as a divine revelation. Still less could dogma serve the purpose, for dogmas were always repellent to rabbinical Judaism, whose very essence is development and the susceptibility to development. Mention has already been made of the fact that Akiva was the creator of a rabbinical Bible version, elaborated with the aid of his pupil, Aquila. Though this is traditionally debated and designed to become the common property of all Jews. But this was not sufficient to obviate all threatening danger. It was to be feared that the Jews, by their facility in accommodating themselves to surroundings, even then a marked characteristic, might become entangled in the net of Grecian philosophy and even in that of Gnosticism. The example of his colleagues and friends, Elisha ben Abuya, ben Azza, and ben Zoma, strengthened him still more in his conviction of the necessity of providing some counterpose to the intellectual influence of the non-Jewish world. Now I'm going to read a little more. Akiva's hermeneutic system. Akiva sought to apply the system of isolation followed by the Pharisees. And the Pharisees are those who separate themselves to doctrine as they did to practice, to the intellectual life as they did to that of daily discourse. And he succeeded in furnishing a firm foundation for his system. As the fundamental principle of his system, Akiva enunciates his conviction that the mode of expression used by the Torah is quite different from that of every other book. In the language of the Torah, nothing is mere form. Everything is essence. It has nothing superfluous, not a word, not a syllable, not even a letter. Every peculiarity of diction, every particle, every sign is to be considered as of higher importance, as having a wider relation, as being of deeper meaning than it seems to have. Like Philo, who saw in the Hebrew construction of the infinitive with the finite form of the same verb, and in certain particles, adverbs, prepositions, etc., some deep reference to philosophical and ethical doctrines. Akiva perceived in them indications of many important ceremonial laws, legal statutes, and ethical teachings. He thus gave the Jewish mind not only a new field for its own employment, but convinced both of the immutability of Holy Scripture and of the necessity for development in Judaism. He succeeded in reconciling these two apparently hopeless opposites by means of his remarkable method. The following two illustrations will serve to make this clear. The high conception of woman's dignity, which Akiva shared in common with most other Pharisees, induced him to abolish the folk custom that banished ritually impure women from all social communication. He succeeded, moreover, in fully justifying his interpretation of those scriptural passages upon which this ostracism could be incorrectly sourced. For him, a Jewish slave is a contradiction in turn, for every Jew is to be regarded as a prince. Akiva therefore teaches in opposition to the competing halakha that the sale of an underage daughter by her father conveys to her purchaser no legal title to marriage with her, but on the contrary carries with it the duty to keep the female slave until she is of her age, and then to marry her. How Akiva endeavors to substantiate this from the Hebrews text is shown. His hermeneutics frequently put him at odds with the interpretation of his colleagues, as particularly demonstrated by his attitude toward the Samaritans. He considered friendly discussion with these potential converts as desirable on political as well as on religious ground, and he permitted not only eating their bread but also intermarriage, considering them as full converts. This is quite remarkable, seeing that in matrimonial legislation he went so far as to declare every forbidden betrothal as absolutely void, and the offspring as legitimate. For similar reasons, Akiva rules leniently in the biblical ordinance of Kilayim. Nearly every chapter in the treatise on that name contains a mitigation by Akiva. Love for the Holy Land, which he as a genuine nationalist frequently and warmly expressed, was so powerful with him that he would have exempted agriculture from much of the rigor of the law. These examples would suffice to justify the opinion that Akiva was the man to whom Judaism owes prominently its activity as its and its capacity for further development in accordance with the tradition he received. Now, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna hold my reading there, but so, like I said, this man was very influential, and he was a rabbi. As you can see, he was a very influential man, and he was around during that period of time that we talking about this Gnosticism, and he didn't condone it. As far as he's concerned, he didn't want that kind of influence in Judaism. He didn't want that Gnostic to be an influence on Judaism. Okay. No, what I was reading is about Rabbi Akiva, and it's Rabbi Akiva's left calf, and then some of this is talking about Gnosticism. But I'm gonna go straight down to the bottom. I'm gonna bypass a lot of this, and so let me read this. Now, like I said, I'm gonna bypass a lot of this, and I'm gonna get straight to the point. So while I'm reading, lurking in the background of this debate is the larger religious context of the time. Centuries of occupation, first by Persians and then by Greeks, had left Judaism on the defensive. Even the interregnum of Jewish kings, the Hasmonean dynasty, 4th and 1st centuries BC, required constant vigilance by Jewish leaders against Greek influences, especially among the members of the increasingly cosmopolitan royal family. Hellenism meant not only intermarriage and political and social subjugation, but also the ever-recurring temptation to multiply gods. Eventually, the Romans replaced the Greeks. They installed the wickedly inspired Herod, who was the last of the Hasmoneans. He was eager to promote Roman values, and he inflicted humiliating cruelty on the Jews, including substituting religious symbols in the temple. When Herod died, Israel fell into a chaos of competing factions. The uprising against Rome by Jewish zealots in 66 Common Era finally stung the Romans into action. They smashed the rebellion and destroyed the temple. The following periods in Palestine humiliatingly renamed by the Romans for Israel's inveterate enemies. The Philistines saw the emergence of numerous sects and cults, including Gnosticism, and the early seeds of Christianity, One of the common Gnostic principles was that divine forces work within individual phenomena of nature, while the Jewish tradition saw a continuity of the divine forces, everywhere in the universe. It insisted on the unity and singularity of God. Though abstract, this Gnostic multiplication of divine entities would echo uncomfortably the many cults and idol worshiping beliefs that challenged the Jews for 1,500 years, going back to the time of the Canaanites. Worship of animals, trees, the sky, the sun, the moon. Rabbi Ishmael is trying to trap Akiva into a Gnostic heresy. Akiva resists seeing the trap, and in fact reveals the very trap by turning the interpretation of into a reaffirmation of monotheism. Rabbi Ishmael one-ups Akiva. You could have stayed true to your principle of amplifying and still avoided the Gnostic heresy by amplifying it in this way. Rabbi Akiva later becomes one of the rabbis martyred by the Romans for supporting the Bar Kokhba rebellion in 136 Common Era. So like I said, I wanted to read that, So like I said, Rabbi Akiva, A-K-I-V-A, Akiva, Rabbi Akiva. Okay. Now, what I'm reading is, see, I'm looking at some of the things that the Jews were saying about Gnosticism. And I'm gonna have to click back over so you'll see where I'm at. Okay, let me see where I'm at. Okay, that's what I meant. Now I'm over here on this. It's a PDF. I'm reading from a PDF. I mean, it's there. And so this PDF is the whole PDF is Gnosticism. Its history and influence by Benjamin Walker. It's a PDF. A concise survey of Gnostic thought from its pre-Christian origins to its modern manifestations. It was first published in 1983. All right, let me go down to where it says the Gnostic influence, starting at 161. But this is a PDF. Okay. Let me see. Let me read this. And like I said, that's what I'm reading from this book titled Gnosticism and its history and influence. And it was written by Benjamin Walker and it was published in 1983. But I'm gonna read this. It has been established that a number of post-Christian, Messianic, and apocalyptic Jewish texts were written under Gnostic influence. And so were some of the mystical writings of the Jews. The great modern authority on the Kabbalah, Gershom Scholem, referred to certain types of Hebrew mysticism as Jewish Gnosticism. The rabbinical texts speak out strongly against the Manim, or sectarians who flagrantly disregard the religious observances, feast days, the Sabbath, and circumcision, and give expression on theories based on some secret knowledge outside the Pentateuch. According to Professor M. Freelander, the heretics against whom the rabbis directed their attacks in the 1st and 2nd centuries were Jewish Gnostics. The rabbis warned, he who speculates on what is above and what is below, what was before and what comes after, and he who does not spare the honor of the Creator, would better not have been born. These and related matters placed under rabbinic condemnation were of obvious Gnostic provenance. Already before the middle of the 2nd century, metaphysical speculation concerning the beginning, the divine chariot, and the heavenly mansions was well underway. During the same period, Rabbi Akiva drew up the outlines of a treatise that was to become famous some centuries later as the Sefer Yetzirah. Other Kabbalists developed in often fanciful ways the symbolism of the Gnostic Decad. In their elaborate scheme of the 10 Sephirot, the Gnostic factor has never since been relinquished in Kabbalism. Through the ages, many Jewish and semi-Jewish reformatists and mystical sects who set out to purge the Hebrew religion of its rigid formalism took on a Gnostic tinge. Thus, the Mahareans of Egypt and Mesopotamia, who are referred to as Gnostic Jews, believed in the existence of a high God who is good and an angel creator who is evil. Many parts of the Old Testament were attributed by theirs to the inspiration of this angel creator and not to God. Again, the Karaites, who flourished in Mesopotamia from the 8th to 12th century, opposed Hebrew phylacterism, Talmudism, and the inequality of women, and gave a great fillip to Kabbalah studies. They held that Jesus, among others, was a true prophet who brought an authentic message of redemption, and there were many others. So like I said, I wanted to just, and again, let me scroll all the way back up. This is a PDF And you had to pay for it. And the title of this PDF is Gnosticism, Its History and Influence, written by Benjamin Walker. A concise survey of Gnostic thought from its pre-Christian origins to its modern manifestations. And like I said, it was written by Benjamin Walker, and it was published 1983. And as you can see here, Rabbi Akiva is mentioned in this. All right. Let me scroll. Let me see. No, I was just looking at something he was talking about Rabbi Q. I had already read it in Wikipedia, so it was pretty much, but I had to read that way I could see that it was talking about the same thing. But like I said, man, this Rabbi Akiva, what I'm trying to say is that when you're looking for someone that was opposed to something, that's what you do. And at that very point, during the 1st and 2nd century, the Jewish rabbis, there were people who were speaking against Gnosticism. That was one of them, Rabbi Akiva. Now, this man was a teacher. Now, remember, this man was a teacher. So, by him teaching, his students, they were also against Gnosticism. So like I'm still looking at this, but like I said, Rabbi Akiva, he was one, not the only, but he was one. And I read earlier that this man was a Jewish rabbi, and he was against Gnosticism and that outside influence of Judaism. He did not support Gnosticism. So like I said, I know I'm sitting here, but like I said, I'm spending time. I'm looking at things on Rabbi Akiva, and so like I said, I know I'm sitting here, I'm looking in front of the desktop here, and I was Rabbi Akiva. So, like I said, I'm not trying to not say, but what I'm looking at is information on Rabbi Akiva. So, what time is it? Yeah, what? Like I said, I had found what was that book I talked about? Oh yeah, like I said, like I said earlier when I started my video, I found this book, The Jewish Background to Gnosticism, a guide to the perplexed, and it was written by G.W. Trump. Trump. You spell his last name Trompf, and it was published 1940. And this same book is in another book, The Gnostic World, and it was published in 2019. So it's a lot of information out, and you can do your investigation, your research, and things of this nature. But oh yeah. I had found this other PDF. It was published in 2004, Butler University. Digital Commons at Butler University. Right? But the title of it, Two Powers in Early Jewish and Christian Monotheism. James F. McGrath, Butler University, and Jerry True. let me just read the first part of this, because it's talking about this book that I had found. Let me read. Our understanding of early Judaism and its relationship to Christianity has been significantly advanced by Alan Siegel's formative work on the two powers heresy. This work demonstrated that belief in two heavenly powers was considered an intolerable heresy by the rabbis, and that Christians were among those indicted. Furthermore, Siegel argued that the two powers debate could be traced back to the 1st century, as evidenced by certain Christological passages of the New Testament and by Philo's writings. Thus, according to Siegel, the two powers controversy provides an important insight into the 1st century context of the New Testament. And conversely, those early Jewish and Christian writings shaped rabbinic reports about those who claim there are two powers in heaven. Siegel's study has widely influenced Jewish and Christian scholarship. Among its contributions, the study firmly placed early Christological developments and controversy in a Jewish setting. It also took a critical approach to the dating and redaction of rabbinic literature. However, Siegel's study is not without shortcomings. For example, Siegel appears to maintain that there was a clear orthodoxy in 1st century Judaism, whereas the existence of a clearly recognizable orthodoxy during this period is much debated. Siegel hints at three possible ways of relating the two powers debate to 1st century Judaism. First, we have the interpretation which Siegel himself appears to favor, stressing continuity or consistent condemnation. On this interpretation of the evidence, the belief that there were two powers in heaven was condemned as a heresy in rabbinic literature, just as the same belief was condemned as a heresy in 1st century Judaism. This view maintained that there was continuity in belief. It was the same belief over the centuries, and continuity in rabbinic condemnation. It was not accepted at any time. A second possible way of conceptualizing the matter can be called retrospective condemnation. That is, certain 1st century Jewish beliefs were later classified as two powers heresy and retrospectively condemned in rabbinic literature. Here we have continuity in belief, the same belief, but not in condemnation. Earlier, the belief in question was accepted, or at the very least tolerated, but later it was not. A third explanation emphasized development. Particular 1st century Jewish beliefs evolved into a form which became intolerable for the rabbis. In this view, there is only partial continuity of belief. It changed over time, and there is discontinuity regarding condemnation. Only the latter form was rejected. Siegel's study has demonstrated that a similarity exists between some 1st century exegesis like Philo's and later two powers discussion in the rabbinic literature. However, he has not provided corroborating evidence for his overall conclusion in two ways. First, Siegel has not provided evidence that Philo, for example, was regarded by his Jewish contemporary as a heretic, which Siegel's work might lead us to expect. This suggests that a retrospective explanation may be possible. Second, Siegel has not demonstrated that specific 1st century beliefs were identical with those later condemned. This opens the way for a developmental explanation. Thus, we believe there are grounds for questioning whether or not Christological passages in the New Testament ought to be read in light of the two powers heresy of rabbinic Judaism. Although various forms of two powers conceptuality may have been present in 1st century Christian and Jewish thought, we will argue that there is no evidence that they were identified as heretical during that century. So like I said, I found this PDF And again, the title of the PDF is Two Powers in Early Jewish and Christian Monotheism. And it was published in 2004. And you can find it on digitalcommons.butler.edu. Butler University. Library, whatever. And so let me click back over the time. Yeah. So like I said, in your investigation or research, that'll be something you can look into. And so, like I said, that was one of the books. So like I said, you can find these books and just do your research, you know. So like I said, I'm gonna continue to do investigation and research. It's a lot of information, and the more information you look, you start to see that people in academia, scholarship is talking about this Nazi stuff, but they're not saying what you think people be saying. They not telling you, hey man, you know, you need to be listening to that Nazi theologian. No, ain't nobody telling you that. They telling you it's some controversy. It's some serious issues. It's some lies that have been told, and there a lot of this stuff in that period of time, the 1st and 2nd century, when this stuff was being propagated, apparently, being established. There was a lot of Jewish, and then with Christianity trying to develop, trying to get its footing in the 1st and 2nd century, and they had this stuff going on, and now it's being identified as being, that's what, it was people who were Jewish, and then during that period of time, see, what you call Jewish, all that Pharisee and Sadducee, how people identify themselves as Jews, and all this about different people living in different locations, and how far back Judaism go, and how the Jews have been conquered, the land had been conquered by other, like the Greeks, for example, the Persians, and the effect that all this war, all this fighting had on Judaism. All this appropriation, alleged appropriation. This had an effect on Judaism. And so our perception of just reading, you read the Bible and you had this perception in your mind of Judaism, but dealing with academia changes your viewpoint of Judaism, and that it really wasn't no hierarchy for a long time. This is what Rabbi Akiva was talking about, his teacher, who was one of those advocating for a centralized leadership of Judaism. So when you talk about Rabbi Akiva, you should take heed to what, and you should do your investigation research about Rabbi Akiva. See, you had to see Judaism, and you can learn a lot about Judaism just by studying Rabbi Akiva, because you will see that's not how Judaism was. When you read the Holy Bible, you will see that's how, when Rabbi Akiva was going through the process of going through schools and things, look at where he went to go to school. Look at who taught him. Where did he go? And where did his teacher come from? See, that's Judaism. So your perception of Judaism during that period of time, that's not, this Hollywood version of Judaism. This modern view of Judaism. You can learn a lot by just reading about Rabbi Akiva. Let me just read. See, that's what I'm talking about. Let me just read about Rabbi Akiva here in his later years. and it's talking about this central authority of Judaism. So it wasn't no central authority. So your view of Judaism during that period of time, we talking about before we even got to the first century. The greatest Tanaim of the middle of the second century came from Akiva's school, notably Rabbi Meir, Judah bar Ale, Simeon bar Yaakov, Yoke, Jos ben Halafta, Eleazar ben Shamuel, and Rabbi Nehemiah. Besides these, Akiva had many disciples whose names have not been handed down, but the Agadah variously gives their number as 12,000, 24,000, and 48,000. Akiva is reported to have had a rabbinic relationship with Rabbi Gamaliel, dated as before their trip to Rome. Convinced of the necessity of a central authority for Judaism, Akiva became a devoted adherent and friend of Rabbi Gamaliel, who aimed at constituting the patriarch, the true spiritual chief of the Jews. However, Akiva was just as firmly convinced that the power of the patriarch must be limited both by the written and the oral law, the interpretation of which lay in the hands of the learned, and he was accordingly brave enough to act in ritual matters in Rabbi Gamaliel's own house, contrary to the decision of Rabbi Gamaliel himself. Akiva filled the office of an overseer of the poor. Various rabbinic texts testify to his personal qualities such as benevolence and kindness toward the sick and needy. But see, we shouldn't have this glorified view of Judaism, prior to the first century. So like I said, I know that today on today's video I spent, but during that period of time of Gnosticism, trying to get itself, this rabbi would live during that period of time, and he was not one of those people who condoned Judaism being, Gnostic heresy. Because that's what it was, a heresy. He didn't condone that outside influence, that worldly influence. If you either, being influenced by Judaism, not that worldly stuff, But what I'm gonna do today, I'm gonna get ready to end today's video. Now you do your own independent research and investigation, and just remember Rabbi Akiva, and think about some of the people that taught him, some of the teachers. See, Akiva studied under Joshua ben Hananiah and Aniyah. Nechum Ish Gamzu. For example, read about them. And so, like I said, but I'm gonna get ready to end today's video today, and I'm gonna come back on my next video. We're gonna continue this investigation, research of this Gnostic stuff, and how Judaism, the people that were Jews, were involved in this Gnostic stuff, as well as first century. Apparently, just like the Christians were Jews first. A lot of the majority of your early Catholics, slash Christians, were Jews. So I'm gonna come back on my next video. We're gonna have some more. But again, my name is Eric D. Johnson, also on BrightShine. I live right here in the city of Memphis, in the county sheriff, is in the state of Tennessee. Thank all my family, my support for you continue to encourage support. Now, I'll thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God, for all the blessing and guidance He provided myself, as well as all of us with. Continue to pray for peace. There are wars being fought all over the world, not just in one location. Wars are being fought, so continue to pray for peace. Continue to pray for peace. And so, you have natural disasters and things in nature. Continue to pray. Father's Day is coming up here in the United States of America. So, be looking forward to that. So, until next time, take care of yourself. Wish each and every one of you the very best.